All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our Introduction to Investment Properties training. We are so excited you are here. I'm Tegan Enlow. I am a licensed realtor in the state of Oregon at Premier Property Group. And I'm going to be kicking us off today and then passing the baton over to Natalie James, who is the lender on with us today, and then Hyle Bradley, who's going to talk about all things property management. They are who I call when I need immediate help with something. So, with that, let's get started. Okay, so you are here. We are at the beginning of the presentation. I kind of already covered this a bit, but I'm going to talk about the things that you would want to know about buying a property if you are looking at it from an investment standpoint. Natalie is going to cover all things financing because getting a loan for a property that you're not planning to occupy has different requirements and things that you're going to want to know about. And then Hyle is going to go over all of the things related to I bought a house, I want to rent it out, what now? So, just a little bit about our team, real quickly, for anyone that hasn't met us yet. So, like I said, I'm Tegan. I am licensed in Oregon. We have Lauren on here as well. She is on our real estate team and licensed in both Oregon and Washington. She resides up in Washington, so she is our Washington expert. But she also does Oregon too, because she used to live here. And then Michael, my husband, he is licensed in both Oregon and Washington. We are located in Oregon. So we do all things Oregon, but we go across the river for our friends who are looking to be in Washington. So, just really quickly, one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about investment properties, we have a lot of clients who ask us about them, either because they are thinking of converting their current residence or they have thought about it as a retirement strategy. They want to own investment properties. Um, so, Part of the reason why we think that we are uniquely positioned to help with folks who are looking at any form of investment property, whether it is something you plan to make a short term rental like an Airbnb, something you want to do as a long term standard rental, which is what we're going to be primarily covering today. Um, or even if you're looking later on for like a commercial type property. Michael's and my background prior to real estate was that we worked in land use planning and development. So we are very familiar with zoning. We're very familiar with land use criteria, things that you'd want to know about if you were looking at using any kind of property for income producing purposes. It's not an area that everyone practices in because it's got a lot of different facets to it. So you want to make sure that when you're looking to buy something like that, that you're working with a team that is familiar with those types of properties. Our team, with Michael and I and Lauren, we're top producers in the region. We close multiple transactions a month, which keeps us up to date on what offer trends are looking like, what those purchasing trends are doing for different areas within the Portland metro area and Southwest Washington. We have helped folks before with investment property purchases. So we have represented both sellers and buyers that are purchasing short term rentals, standard rentals, also people who have current rental properties who are looking to sell them, whether it is something that has people living in them, like a residence style one, which is what we're going to talk about today, or a commercial property with office space in it. And then we love rentals too. We got into real estate because we thought that investment properties and rental property ownership was a great strategy for us for our money and retirement and future. And we were so enthusiastic about it, we accidentally fell into a new career. But we believe it's a great way to create generational wealth, and it's something that we're enthusiastic about, and we would love to talk to you about it as well. Okay, so a couple of things about how you can get a rental property. I kind of broke it up into three primary options for when you are looking to purchase. So, option one, which I actually hear a lot From folks who are like, I want to buy a rental property. You can buy something that is currently an existing rental. So we have sold properties like this. We have shown properties like this to our clients who are looking to buy. This is a property that is currently under lease and rented by a tenant. So you have rental history there. Depending on what you want to do, you've already got a tenant in place if you're interested in keeping them. So this is nice because it's sort of like an already started option for you that you can just pick up and keep going with. Same for if you're looking at a short-term rental, you might be looking at something that's already got, history as a vacation home, so you can continue using it as such. Another one I hear about a lot right now specifically is converting your primary residence into a rental property. I think that's a really attractive option because a lot of folks who are getting ready to move into the next home, whether it's a different location or they want a bigger property or a bigger house, they look at their current home and how much they've paid off on it. They look at their current interest rate. Maybe they bought it back when rates were crazy low, and they think, well, I could sell this, but my monthly payment on it is so low right now, and the rents are so much higher that it might make sense to turn it into a rental. This is called house hacking. Natalie will talk about that a little bit more later. And then another one that we've helped folks with is finding a house that hasn't traditionally been a rental property, but meets criteria for being a really desirable option. So, an example I have is we worked with clients who were looking for a rental property, and they specifically targeted out near like the Nike campus, the Intel campus, locations where you may have employees who are relocating for 6 months to a year and they need temporary housing, ones that are on public transit lines. And that's how they narrowed down where they wanted to purchase. I know that Hyle has access to information if you follow up with him later about what rents look like in different communities, what house specs get. And so he can really help you target kind of, where would you be interested in investing and what kind of house would you be looking to purchase. Okay, and so last slide from me that I wanted to talk about is common rental purchase contingencies. So these are some of them overlap with the contingencies that you would see if you are buying a home for yourself to occupy. But there's some different things you'll want to pay attention to if you are specifically buying a house or property that you plan to use as a rental property. So the first one that I think is really important is you're going to want to check the HOA requirements. So it's really common right now, particularly with newer construction homes, that they are included in an HOA. And within the HOA bylaws, there is oftentimes information in there that talks about limiting the number of properties within the community that are eligible for rental properties. I think the idea with that is that trying to maintain that primary residence feel, so making sure that only a certain number of properties in the community have rotating occupants or tenants. Sometimes it's specifically to a standard rental, like someone's going to be there a long time. There's separate regulations and requirements a lot of times if you're looking at a short-term rental where people are going to be turning over more frequently. So that's something really specific that if you say, hey, I'm working with Tegan or I'm working with Michael or I'm working with Lauren on buying a property and I intend to use it as a rental, we will make sure we pay really specific attention to the HOA requirements as part of our searching for you. When you're looking at properties that are currently used as a rental property, meaning that they're leased, they have a tenant in place, a lot of times you'll see a note in the advertisement that says interior inspection upon accepted offer. What that means is that they don't want to disrupt the tenants for you to come view the home ahead of time. Because, a lot of people coming in and out, checking out to see if it's the right fit for them. They're basically saying if you submit a serious offer, and we accept it, we agree to the terms, you can come and walk through the property. And then if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. You can cancel out of the contract. It's a contingency, but that's not uncommon for ones that are tenant occupied. And then something else I wanted to mention is that when you're doing an inspection for something that is where you're going to live as opposed to something that you might be using as a rental, One of the things that I've noticed that tends to be a little different in the buyers is if you are using it as a rental property, you're going to pay more attention to things that are like the hardcore mechanics and the nuts and bolts of the house. So, things that are really expensive to fix, roofs, HVAC system, water heaters, all that kind of stuff. Those are going to be the most important things that we want to make sure that we have inspected, that possibly we bring in additional contractors and things to look at to help you estimate how long of a lifespan these different types of components have. Whereas if you're getting ready to move into there, you might also be looking at more things like aesthetics. Does it have the countertops that you want? What's the paint color? If you're looking at it as an investment property for generating income, the aesthetics are important, and Hyle can talk about that a little bit later. But the really expensive nuts and bolts things that would impact livability become much more important and are really crucial to make sure that your realtor team is bringing in the right folks for you for inspections and contractors and different things. So, last one I'm going to touch on is financing. There are different types of loans and different requirements that are needed for being able to purchase a house that you're going to use as a rental property. So just because you have gotten a pre-approval letter or done some research and said, hey, I think I can qualify to buy a home, if that was specific to you moving in and living in it, you have to have it checked again if it's something that you're planning to do as an investment that you don't occupy. And I think Natalie can talk a little bit as well about maybe ones where like you occupy a portion and you rent out another portion. There's some different combinations there. So I am going to pass it over to her now so that she can talk about those.
Thank you, Tegan. That's awesome. I'm excited to talk about the listing in Oregon City and run a live scenario. But good basics. And Iggy or partner, if you can let us know if you are looking in Oregon or Washington in the chat box. And also, if there's anything that you want to ask throughout, throw it in that chat box and Tegan will read it to me. So thanks for being here. Again, I'm going to screen share and hopefully do this right because every time I try. Make me a co-host if you can. Thank you. Okay. Let me move you over. There we
Iggy
go.
says that they are looking at investment properties in Oregon.
Great. Okay, there's just a couple of differences which the Enloe group can teach you about buying and selling in Washington when it comes to any property investment, second home, or primary residence. But good to know. Okay, thank you. I am Natalie James. I'm a senior loan officer. That doesn't mean that I'm old. It just means I've been doing this for a long time and have a great team. I have a senior processor and a loan officer assistant / concierge to take care of all my clients with me, because especially during an investment property purchase where the underwrite is a little more extreme than a normal purchase, you need a lot of people on your side. So I'm with Academy. We're a national bank. I am local to the Pacific Northwest region of Academy. I'm in the Wilsonville branch. I also have a Tigard branch, a North Portland branch, a Pearl branch, and a Clackamas branch for ease and convenience, and also branches all throughout Vancouver because I am licensed in Washington too. We do work closely with all 1031 tax exchange intermediaries, and we can teach you about who that is if needed. It's a middleman. It's a way to have a tax shelter or a tax protection when it comes to selling an investment property and buying another one simultaneously. A lot of rules around that, but we work closely with, there's quite a few intermediaries in town, but we have referrals too for the top ones that we've worked with before. So occupancy, this is the big common talk about mortgage fraud. So number one mortgage fraud in America is not lying about income or hiding your money. It is occupancy. Number one mortgage fraud. And what we're talking about when it comes to occupancy and mortgage is either you're buying a home as a primary residence or as a second home, which everybody gets the right or joy of buying a second home somewhere. It's usually at the beach, near a kiddo that's in a university, near your parents. It's typically somewhere that you like to go visit. Sometimes you can rent it out too when you're not there, but there are requirements for how long you have to be there throughout the year. But tonight we're mostly talking about investment properties, and that is purchasing a home that you are intending to rent out, make rents on. So you're going to earn a return through rental income and your future resale, which Hyle is going to really touch on tonight, purchasing investment property in PDX Metro and focusing on not just your rents as income, but your future resale as income. Be held by you and or a group of yous, a group of investors together. You do fund the loan in your own names. And you can put as little as 15% down. I've put over here what second home vacation home is, and we do fund second home vacation homes too. And obviously, you can short-term rent out a second home or a vacation home to make income, but let's focus on investment properties. And 1 through 4 units is what is a residential mortgage. Anything above 4 units is considered an apartment. So you'd be looking more at commercial type financing, which we can dive into. It's a whole different beast, but 1 to 4 units. So single family residence, also known as a house, or a planned unit development, like a townhouse with an HOA, or a duplex, a triplex, or a quad. And that's when that house hacking is going to come into play. On the duplex, the triplex, and the quad scenarios is what investors' favorite house hacking is to do. So sneak over here to different types of mortgages. So mortgage financing during a investment property is quite different than when you're buying a home to just move into it yourself and or with your family. Not too long ago, last year, the feds, HUD, Fannie Mae, everybody met and decided they wanted to boost primary residence purchases, boost home ownership all around for Americans. And therefore, they put quite a few restrictions, rate hikes, and fees on investment property purchasing. So that's something to be prepared for right off the bat when you're getting financing on investment properties. They're not the same rates and fees as buying a primary purchase. And you also have to have an elevated credit profile. It's a little harder when it comes to owning multiple properties. So if you already have an investment property or 2 or 3, the guidelines start to get a little tougher and tougher. But for the most part, there's 3 different types of residential mortgages you can get into. And there's 30-year fixed, there's 15-year fixed, all of those things we talk about during your customized consult on what's the best fit for you. But conventional financing, there is a myth that you have to put 20% down on a investment property. You can put 15% down with mortgage insurance. Of course, you're going to take a big hit to rate and your fees, but it is possible. Most people do not want that rate hit and fees, so they will put at least 20% down. And then the rate and fees get better at 25% down. So when we run the scenario on the Oregon City House tonight for you, we're going to do a 25% down scenario. Like Tegan was saying, there are certain things when it comes to any of the financing, but on conventional financing, we're going to look deep into an HOA on a condo. Biggest thing is, are you even allowed to rent it? We do ask right up front, Tegan asks right up front, is this rentable? Or is there a rental cap? So are they close to their rental cap? Are you going to live in it with an intention to rent it out in the future? That's something you want to look at that rental cap at, because you may be held to that property as a primary residence for a certain amount of time before you can even rent it. On These two first types of loans here, there are no gifts allowed. So when you buy your investment property with a mortgage, you got to have all your own funds, and they need to be seasoned in an account for at least 2 months. I really want everybody to understand too, when we work with our clients, oftentimes it's for years, but especially on investment property, we work for quite a bit of time during the pre-approval process, so that we know you have enough reserves in your 401ks, in your IRAs, in your checking and savings. Depending on how many homes you already own, you're going to have reserves in the bank after the purchase is complete. And we won't know what that amount is until you take the application and we kind of dive deep into all your income, assets, and credit. But any funds, any cash, anything that needs to be used for the transaction needs to be seasoned in an account for 2 months for the purchase of an investment property. There's no down payment assistance on investment property purchases. Those are for primary residences only. And again, with the reserves, I keep bringing this up because a lot of people, I don't want you to think that that's just the down payment percentage plus closing costs and prepaids. Oftentimes reserves are required for an investment property. So house hacking, this is one of our favorite things to talk about. There's a couple different things about house hacking. One thing you can think of with house hacking is when you exit your home, say you own your own property currently, and you exit that home, it's called your exiting residence, and you're not going to sell it, you're going to rent it out. You can place a renter in there, get a lease agreement signed, and we can use a portion of that lease that hasn't even started yet as income for your upcoming purchase. Another big house hacking is the FHA house hacking on the purchase. So the purchase of a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, right? And you're going to live in one of the units, and you're going to rent out the other 3. We can actually use the rents, a big portion of the rents on those 2, 3 other units as qualifying income as well. So there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of what ifs. This is why we have Hyle here tonight, because the what ifs of renting are enormous. And we do highly recommend getting a CPA involved and a financial planner, if you have one, to go over all the figures as well on your own budgeting and your own lifestyle and how you're structuring this investment. But Hyle's expertise is that, especially during house hacking, what can each sell for or rent for? I keep saying sell. What can each rent for, and is it going to work? On the FHA house hack program, it's as little as 3.5% down. Now, of course, you got to qualify. So it might be more for you. It might be more, it might be 8% required, or 25% required, or 80% required. It's just a matter of your debt to income ratio with all those different types of income I talked about. But on this one, it's as little as 3.5% down.
Hey, Natalie.
Yep.
Is there any requirement or guidelines that people generally need to follow for how long they have to live in a unit before they can convert it to a full-time rental? Like if it was your own house you bought and you lived there for like 2 or 3 years and you were relocating out of state, or you needed to get a bigger house because your mom's moving in or something, I don't know. What's the rule of thumb for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when it comes to you signing loan documents for the mortgage of a property, you do sign that it is your intention to live in that home for 1 year, and that will stamp it as your primary residence. And after 1 year, you can move out and buy another primary residence. You can move out and sell it, or you can move out and rent it. So it's a hop, right? If you buy a duplex and you live in one side for 1 year and hop out, rent both sides, and go into another duplex and live in one side for 1 year, you can do that consistently.
And can you get the primary residence, like down payment and interest rates and stuff when you move into it each time, and then it stays when you move out and convert it to a rental?
Yep,
Ooh.
yep. What if you're there for 1 year? And it all depends on your qualifying on the new one each time, right? So
Mhm.
again, part of that house hacking, when you move out of that duplex, can you use both rents when you move out? Do you need to use them? What did your rents look like over the year that you lived there? Did they go
Mhm.
up? Did they go down? So
Probably
there's,
a good time to check in with Hyle before buying one of these if that's your long-term plan.
yes. Hyle's expertise in this is desperately needed when it comes to anybody that's investing in an investment property, sole investment property, and if they're house hacking, if they're living in it as their primary but are renting it out. I think that that's really a close relationship with a renter landlord, and it would be nice to actually have somebody in the middle to keep that relationship strong and healthy. So this slide here has a lot of information on it, and this DSCR loan is running around, right? If people are excited about investment properties and have looked into them at all, this loan has come up. It's rather new and it's pretty great. You can invest in real estate with no income or employment verification. So typically when you get any mortgage, you're going to have to prove your income. You have to prove your assets. On this DSCR loan, you do have to prove your credit. So there is credit checked and looked through thoroughly. But what happens is they look at the debt service coverage ratio of the rents and how we're going to do, like we're saying, we're going to do the Oregon City property together. And if it matches, there's enough rent to cover the mortgage payment, then you can slide into this DSCR loan with very minimal underwriting for income and employment. Now you can see down here that I've got a lot of asterisks and these are very basic rules. There's pages and pages and pages of the rules, but these DSCR loans have so many different options when it comes to do you want a prepayment penalty or do you want to go with the no prepayment penalty, because one's rate is better than the other, right? Because if you take a prepayment penalty of 3 years is the typical prepayment penalty, of course the bank is going to like that and reward you. So lots of different options with how you want to structure your DSCR. The short-term rentals for these, so this is people who are thinking about picking up something for an Airbnb purpose, right? Or VRBO, where you have short-term renters in it. You're going to want to pick up a already in place Airbnb that can show the 12 months of rentals coming in, what the rents are. And then down here is the ratio. So you can go under a 1.0 ratio if it's single family, so it can't be 2 to 4 units, or if it is, you have to have a credit score over 740. If you're an inexperienced investor, you're going to get limited on how this DSCR is going to work for you. That's why the pre-approval on these take a little bit of time and preparation, full understanding. And we actually go through underwriting on these loans before you even make an offer. So it's a little bit of the opposite on when you buy a primary residence, you go make an offer and then we go through underwriting. We actually underwrite an investment property loan ahead and then you go shopping. But this is fantastic. So if you want to talk about the DSCR loan, give me a call. It's a lengthy conversation. We can talk about, again, this conventional 15 to 25% down, or if you're thinking about house hacking with a lower down payment and actually living in the home for a year and then live in a new one for a year and maybe stay in that one. Also, you could rent that one out again. Give me a call. What's in a payment? So here we found this beauty in Oregon City. And the reason why I love this property is when I was talking to the listing agent, she was telling me that this seller is willing to pay an extraordinary amount for a rate buy down, which can help an investor tremendously. Because like I said at the beginning, the rates and the fees are higher on investment property loans. So if you already have a seller that you know is going to help lower that rate with and for you, that's a beautiful thing. Also, this house right here has all its bedrooms and bathrooms. And this part of the house is completely separate and can be rented as a separate unit. This is just one home. This isn't a duplex. It's not necessarily coded as a 2 units, but you can rent this whole house out and rent this side out. You can buy this and rent out this floor, and over here. This is a beautiful property for us to go over this scenario on. I did a straight conventional breakdown on this. And most people know what's in a mortgage payment, but if you're unfamiliar, it is your principal and interest and your taxes and your insurance. It's that PITI payment, the pity payment. If there's mortgage insurance, we're going to have that in with the payment. There's no mortgage insurance in here, and there's an HOA. We'll have that shown as part of the housing payment, but there's no HOA on this house either. So conventional, the listing price is $675 with I believe 10,000. Tegan, is it 10,000 that they're gifting? So
Yeah, right now they're offering 10,000 in credits towards a rate buy down, closing costs, whatever you want to do. And it is currently a fully leased 2 units. So it's got renters there if you want them, got rental history. It's ready to go for whoever wants to snatch it up.
that's wonderful. That is such a nice help when it comes to selling to another investor. And I would imagine that if the seller is already a landlord, that they realize this is a gift, and to not, if possible, maybe not roust the tenants and have a move if they could stay. But again, that's your expertise, and where are the tenants going to go? I actually am going to back up because I said that with the house hacking. So if you're going to buy a duplex and house hack it, and there's tenants in both sides right now, you have to move into one of those sides within 60 days of getting the keys. So you're going to work real close with Tegan and to all the timing involved, because there's rules. I can't even imagine the amount of rules. That's also why we have Hyle here. There's rules around getting that current tenant out so you can move into it as a primary residence. So house hacking, it takes a lot of work. It would take all 3 of us to really help with the timing of purchasing as a primary residence, and it's already a rental.
And the 60 days is because if you close on a house and you are not living in it within 60 days, then it basically is now considered a rental property. So it's not your primary residence anymore. And you weren't supposed to get that kind of loan, and you're going to get, probably reached out to.
Yeah, you'll get the note called due is what worst case scenario. The investors can check if you actually inhabited, if you moved in within that 60 days. And on day 61, if you haven't and can't prove it, they can call the note due and payable, which means you'd have to pay the whole mortgage off. All right, so the payment on this is right at $4 grand. This is what, when you find a property, and I work with Hyle, he's going to talk to you about, is this worth it? Now I'm putting 25% down on 675,000, don't forget. But it's $4,000, and that's with everything. So that's your principal, your interest, your taxes, and insurance. This is on this single family residence, but with 2 rentable units. The pre-approval process is it's critical on any buyer, and we do our due diligence on every buyer when they come in for their pre-approval. It's called a pre-approval because you don't get your approval until the end. We do need to find the actual property, but it's so important on investment properties because of the nuances of what can come up during underwriting that's needed from you. Most people who are looking at investment properties have typically gotten a mortgage already on a primary residence. So they understand the underwriter's need for more documents, 3 weeks into a transaction. When we're buying an investment property, we want to avoid that as much as possible. So we want to get the underwriters to review and completely approve the loan before we actually have the property. It's just critical. So you come in, we talk about how much you qualify for, or we Zoom more than anything lately. We increase your bargaining power. We talk to the listing agent with the NLOs about, is there a possibility to get some of that seller credit to buy this rate down so that the payment does work when Hyle's doing the mathematics for you? Estimate your monthly payment and total investment upfront, obviously. Many times with investment property pre-approvals too, I will pre-approve on the 2 or 3 scenarios that they're thinking about. So typically we could look at a condominium, a house, and a multifamily pre-approval. So that we know when you're out shopping, you just need to know your purchase price and you can get into homes on that pre-approval letter. The 3 basics of any mortgage is income, assets, credit. That's the trifecta. Income is going to be W-2 wages, self-employment income, trust funds, benefits, pension, IRA income. We'll go over your just basic income fully as we would on any other pre-approval, but we'll also talk about adding in that rent that you're going to make it to can be used towards that income. A big portion of the potential hypothetical rents on said property that you're buying, or the rent that you're going to get off of your exiting residence. We talk about these things. When it comes to the purchase, we get a real good basis of what the rents could be, will probably be. The appraiser, your appraiser that you have go out with me, will actually tell us what fair market rent is, that the bank will be able to use the big portion of for the qualifying. Your assets come into play in an investment property purchase way more than if you're buying a primary residence. So because people who are buying investment properties tend to have other properties. They have maybe 1 or 2 or 3, or they're in on 1 or 2 or 3 with other investors together. It's a lot of documentation to gather up, depending on if there's HOAs on those properties, or if there's mortgages on those properties or not, what kind of mortgage are on those properties. And then we get told how much we need in those assets altogether due to said qualifiers. And then credit. So you want your credit stellar when you're buying a home. You want your credit extraordinary when you're buying an investment property because of the rates and because of the fees. So coming in a year ahead of time with me to do a pre-approval just to even look at credit, if you're worried at all, is not a problem. Not at all. Sometimes I can work with people for 2 days and fix their credit to the point where it will be a much less painful scenario on the rate and the fees. And sometimes we need 8, 9, 10 months to get to the point where it's going to be worth it. No problem. I'll give you a homework packet to do, and as long as you do it, we pull credit again. Obviously, in that time, you're floating the rate market, so you don't know if rates are going to go up or down, and neither do I. But we want credit to be top tier, extraordinary scores, especially when it comes to investment property. So
That's a
please don't
really
hesitate to reach out well ahead for credit help.
That's a really good point, Natalie. I feel like when people reach out to either like our real estate team, or we recommend that they talk to a lender or a property manager, I think that I think maybe sometimes they get nervous because they think that means they have to be ready right now. And when you're looking at an investment property strategy for your future, it actually can help a lot of times to prepare far in advance, whatever that looks like for you. It doesn't mean if you called us on a Friday and said, I think I want to buy this house that just listed as an investment, that we can't make that work. I mean, we've done it before,
Yeah,
but if you know this is something that you wanna do, it's never too early to talk to us because, we can start just kind of paying attention to what the housing trends are looking like, what rental trends are looking like, what they need to do to be getting all their documentation in place, like you said, because there's so much of it. So letting us know ahead of time is never a problem, and we do not take that to mean that you're planning to buy in the next 24 hours necessarily.
Yeah, much agreed. Don't hesitate. The package that we'll put together for you as a team will be available for you to take to your CPA and take to your financial planner too. So you maybe have questions for us, reach out because your financial planner says, this is a different, better strategy. Take this back to the team. We meld through a CPA and financial planning all the time when it comes to investment properties. So you can't do any of it though if you don't know if you're pre-approved and if you don't know what the market's going to look like when it comes to prices and potential rents available. So you have to get everything kind of done up front and get your package together. And that there's just no harm, no foul at even at the end, you decide it's not time yet. The worst thing you've done is gain knowledge. So please reach out. It's never too early. This is some of the things that we get from people, but plan on more, especially if you own property already. There's a lot that has to be collected on that property that you already have. And it can feel daunting. It really can, and it's not. It's just a matter of getting it all bundled up and done at the front. And we will walk you through every single step. So then when it does come time, you've got that home and the inspection goes great at the beginning, boom, you got it. You got 21 days to close and you own it and have possibly tenants in already. So don't fret. We are here to work with you. Hyle's going to talk about this property management portion in here, and I think a little bit about interior when it comes to rentals, you know, an investment property they're going to rent out, what you're looking for when it comes to how many bedrooms and baths and what is the difference between one bath, 1.5 bath, and 2 bath when it comes to rents. Hyle, this is one of the best things you went over in our pre-meeting. So that's what I have for you today. And I really want to stress that be realistic here, right? Get this just upfront work done so that you can be realistic, educated, empowered. Realism is the best way to walk into an investment. So reach out to us. We're here for you. And with that, I'll let Hyle jump in on the best part of this meeting, was what I think.
So Natalie, I made you the host when you were having trouble sharing. So I don't know if you'll have to transfer the host over to Hyle or if it will let him now as a co-host. Oh,
I put it. Yep.
All right. So, Tegan, will you just wave to me if you can see my screen? Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending. I'm really excited. First of all, I can't say enough about working with Tegan and Natalie. If I was going to purchase an investment property, there aren't 2 other team members that I would rather have. And that's really an important part of this entire process, whether it be me or you or anyone. You really want to have a team on your side to help walk you through all the variances that come with purchasing an investment property. Certainly, I learned something just today listening to Natalie and Tegan both. Now, I am going to jump right in. Quick disclaimer, I am not an attorney or an accountant, so this is strictly advice, and investment does have risks. A little bit about us. We are a local franchise with national backup. Real Property Management has been around for a while. We're now part of the Neighborly family of investors, but we're a locally owned franchise. Dan and Angela purchased this franchise in 2015, and we're landlords serving landlords. We own rental properties that we manage ourselves. We serve investors exclusively. We don't broker property at all. We strictly manage property. Where do we manage property? Oh, great question. We're licensed over here in Oregon for sure. Essentially from Forest Grove to as far east as Gresham, as far south as Wilsonville. Anything that has the word Plex in it, anything that has the word residence in it, we're interested. We don't do a lot of short-term or vacation rental at this point. And if you have questions at the end of this, I encourage you to reach out to me, yours truly, Hyle Bradley, my colleague and the owner of the business, Dan Hayes, also a licensed property manager, also a licensed continuing educator here in the state of Oregon, can also answer quick questions, and is a great resource. Okay, let's jump into it. So you want to be a landlord. The first thing that you really have to do is prepare. Now, preparation, certainly you'll have to do a fair amount on your own end, working with Natalie, working with Tegan around some market specifics around your own financial situation. But I can tell you this, the first thing that you want to know is you want to have an idea of what your market looks like. You know, who are you competing against? What is your competition for tenants? And what is it going to look like in 10 years? Are there specific rental trends that maybe a local property manager or a realtor might know? You know, construction of an Intel satellite plant, or potentially construction of an airplane or airport or train line. You know, all these things might affect your plans and the plans for tenants if they're living in your home. You also really want to know your target. Who are you going after? Did you decide you want to make this a vacation rental? Are these folks looking to spend time in this home for that purpose? Can you create market value in this asset to generate the revenue needed for that purpose? Why would your market choose to rent your property over anyone else's? These are all kind of basic baseline questions, but it's important, especially as you start to look at the different parts of our market locally. Next, you really want to know what you want the asset to do. You know, is this something you're going to hold on to for a long time? Is it built to accumulate wealth for you? Is it a retirement vehicle? This is also an important part of your plan. And when you wanted to do it is the other part. Are you trying to flip this? Are you going to live in half of this duplex, finance through HOA and Natalie, and then potentially break out of it when the market's a little different, or keep it and move into the next one and house hack that one as well? In any case, you're going to want to talk to someone like Tegan and Natalie, who knows the market, knows the local area. And then when you start to dig into some of the rent income and legal questions, you certainly call me as well. Now, I want to talk about some basic standard rules of thumb, and I'm going to give you a brief tool set, but this is all information that does change. It's market dependent. So I can't say enough. You want to talk just like you would ask Natalie about interest rates and commercial loan options, and you would talk to Tegan about appreciation, land use, the ability to make a property perform the way you'd want to. You also want to know some of this knowledge, but you'll want to reach out and contact someone in real time when you're getting closer. Some of these market conditions are pretty standard, and they're going to have quite a bit of variance. For instance, I did this presentation a year ago, and the vacancy rate as standard was closer to 4%. But in our market, 6 is a good bar. Now, I'm going to breeze through a couple of these stats, but to generate net operating income, which is essentially your rent money, subtracting your expenses for maintenance, management, etc., you're going to get a basic idea of what your net operating income looks like. If you're looking at a market, an investment in our market currently, you should want to be on a path towards cash flow positive. It's probably not likely that you're cash flow positive currently, given both the interest rate environment and just the way that home values have appreciated in a meteoric rise in almost every market, but especially here. But that doesn't mean that there aren't real opportunities out there. So sometimes a real opportunity means purchasing a home that doesn't cash flow now. For instance, the Oregon City home that Natalie referenced, and I'll dig into that in a little bit, but one that you know is going to perform well in the future, given that rents are going to continue to rise. Your cash on cash return should be between 5% and 7% in our local market. Gross rent multiplier, or number of years to pay off your loan, should be between 12 and 14. And the cap rate, your actual return on your investment, it should be at least 5% in our current environment, especially given the interest rate environment and the proclivity for folks using other folks' money or using banks' money. You can get a lot of this information through a number of sources, but I can tell you that you can skip a lot of this simply by calling Tegan, Natalie, and myself. You know, whether it's property tax analysis, getting more information around insurance, you know, we all have resources around that. Certainly debt service and working on what the loan looks like would be something that I would feel very comfortable sitting down with Natalie and going through. But when you want to look at what the long-term performance of the property looks like, and you want to include all of it, you're probably going to need a pro forma. And that's something that you would give either myself or Tegan a call, and she could call me and get it. Really, a pro forma is an extended look at the future performance of the asset and takes into account all the factors that I mentioned. Really important to do your due diligence before investing in a rental property. Seems like we've all said it 100 times. Well, there's a lot more that on my end, certainly, that I would suggest that you look at, particular to rental properties. And in this case, I'm going to talk a bit about, for the most part, either a property that has a tenant in it presently, or one perhaps that's a multi-unit property that has multiple tenants. Now, in a single family, you're going to want to get leases. You're going to want that rent roll, other income documentation, and certainly all maintenance records. This is going to be the same whether you're looking at a multifamily or single family property. But specific to single family property, the rent roll isn't as important. You know, it's if you're going to occupy the home for a while, you're not super worried about that. And if you're going to do any work to the house, you know that the rental market could change potentially by the time you're even finished doing the work. So not as important, but maintenance records are super important in a single family home. You really want to know what kind of work has been done, what maintenance has been deferred, what the future looks like. And if it's tenant occupied, you want to see all the tenant requests and how they were addressed. The state of Oregon is the most highly regulated and legislated rent. I'll put it this way: the relationship between the tenant and the landlord is the most regulated in Oregon compared to almost any other state in our union, and particularly the relationship between the tenant and landlord. So you'll want to know that the landlord's been good to the tenant that you're going to inherit, especially if you look at a multifamily property. Now here, the rent roll is going to be much more important. So is the lease. The lease is going to tell you a bit about when you can raise rent again. The true rent roll is going to tell you what the actual revenue is versus any potential hearsay. And that rent roll might be from folks that moved in 10, 15 years ago, and the home hasn't been professionally managed. So here's an opportunity to explore whether maybe the upfront price reflecting a poor cap rate is built based on potential rental income as opposed to present rental income. You'll want to know that. And again, what other income is available to the buyers? Perhaps this property has storage units, garages, or other opportunities to create income. Maybe not all the utilities were billed correctly. There's always room potentially for additional income, and this is really where the rent roll is going to be very important. And you'll want to ask the property manager or the landlord for any documentation around the maintenance. Again, you got it. You want to know the full story about maintenance before you dive into an investment property. Now, I want to talk about the importance of a lease. And I want to talk about this, and I'm going to take an extra minute on this slide. because you really want to make sure that documentation is airtight. Our state not only mandates when and how you can raise rent, it also mandates what can be included in a lease, how you end a tenancy, and under what grounds can you end a tenancy for any sort of negligence, malfeasance, or non-payment, which is obviously an option, for this tenant as you inherit it. Now, when did the occupancy start? When's it scheduled to end? Of course, you're going to want to know that. But the timing of the close and the buyer occupancy is of particular importance, especially if you're talking with Natalie and Tegan and you have to occupy that unit in 60 days. Well, I have some unfortunate news along those lines. The state of Oregon has built all notices for ending tenancies to be 90 days, which will put you way outside of that. Certainly put you in a position potentially where you would be at least in disagreement with your mortgage provider, and that is just obviously there are workarounds, but that's something where you really want to work with an expert. You want to talk to someone like Tegan, talk to someone like Natalie, and have them or yourself give us a call and talk a little bit about what your options are. The state of Oregon through Chapter 90, specifically Chapter 90.427, has said there are very clear rules around how you can end a tenancy and what the landlord qualifying reasons are. And if you don't have an option and you don't potentially have one of those landlord qualifying reasons, there are other avenues, but you want to talk to an expert. Certainly cash for keys is one of those solutions, but you'd want to speak with a property management and potentially an attorney about something like that. With multifamily property, the lease is even bigger because the lease is going to tell you a lot about the tenant. And remember, in a multifamily property, if you're not inheriting that unit, you are obligated to inherit all promises built by that lease when the tenant was placed. Now, maybe those are parameters that you aren't comfortable meeting or not interested in dealing with. Well, you can certainly turn the property over to a property manager. You can also decide that maybe it's not the right investment for you at that time. In any case, seeing the lease is going to give you a lot of that information. Now, if there's no lease written in place, and we certainly see this from time to time in multifamily properties, nothing recorded, that doesn't mean that we're sort of exempt and you can end the tenancy in a more free or loose way. Oregon Chapter 90 still applies, and so all notices, all standard tenant rules still hold in place. And the buyer, you're going to need to know some important information. One, where does the rent go? Who's responsible for the utilities? What are the policies around use of the property? Are there potential security deposits? Who holds that money? All of this is really important and needs to be dialed in before you start to consider making an offer. Absolutely important. I noticed we've got a couple questions, so I'm going to just open that. Perfect. We can keep moving. The next slide is a little bit more light and a little bit more fun, because I did want to talk a bit about how the market has changed post-pandemic. Now, certainly in the post-pandemic landscape, Oregon has passed rent control law on various other laws, all around the tenant-landlord relationship. And while we don't have time to get into all those, I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. I know that Tegan and Natalie have a good knowledge base there, and they'll certainly route people to me if there's additional questions. But one of the fun questions I get a lot is, what are renter preferences in this post-pandemic world? The first one is certainly demand for more space. And I want to add that, not because it seems obvious, we all want more space and room to grow, but we now see more folks working from home than ever before. The days of the 90-day supercommuter are gone, and almost half of the people that commuted more than 90 minutes to work are now working from home at least 2 days a week. That requires additional space for your desk, your computer, your phone, whatever it is. And as a result, folks are willing to move to find more space. And that's something that we didn't always see in the previous market era. The next section, number 2, washer, dryer, AC, high-speed internet, soundproof walls. I'll start by saying this. If you have a single family home, especially, and you're looking at renting it, and you don't have a washer dryer in that home, you're giving up on at least $55 a month in rent. I think it's closer to 100 in this particular market, as we don't have a lot of tenants that move around with their own utilities. And over 92% of the tenants that we got survey data on said that it was important. In this post-pandemic world, no one wants to go to the laundromat. This is a big deal. Air conditioning, also worth almost $55 a month. Now, I know that installing heat pumps on a 2-floor single-family home might be close to $11K. Installing the washer dryer is, maybe $1,200. Both seem on upfront to offer a similar amount of rent revenue return. And this is where you start to lean into the knowledge that Tegan will give you when you start to talk with her about appreciation. Because here, that air conditioning, that retrofit of a new HVAC system doesn't just make your home more attractive to the renter and make it easier to fill, extend your average tenancy, all of which will add to your revenue and bottom line. It's also about appreciation, which in my world, I'm not supposed to talk about, but is an important factor in any investment. And I think air conditioning is it's a major improvement. And I think that it would go a long way towards that appreciation. Internet access, high-speed walls speak directly to folks working from home, the importance of having the ability to work at a home office. And walk-in closets, shockingly enough, in our post-pandemic world, we got a ton of folks getting back with information saying they wanted more space to keep their stuff. The third and big one.
As like a 7-year-old, when my parents were house shopping, I was still saying I needed a walk-in closet. So it's just a universal need. Like kids, everyone, walk-in closets, their life.
They are life. And to that end, also, Tegan, a walk-in closet, the more space, the ability to work from home, all speaks to us consuming a bit more and ordering a bit more stuff and getting, kind of keeping and storing more stuff at our house. I'm seeing less storage units than ever before. Our storage, certainly the storage units we manage, I'm seeing more vacancy than I ever have. So
is it a closet or a cloffice, or is it a Christmas den?
Oh, if you live in the Bradley residence, it is a Christmas Easter den, because the red and green are almost as important as the pink and pastel.
How many trees do you have, though?
Just one.
You're slacking. I have 8.
So with 8 trees, you're going to get a lot of packages. There's going to be a lot of packages, Tegan, that come in around the Christmas time. And all those packages that are going to go onto those trees need to be delivered safely. And as we discovered, in a world where you couldn't go out and shop for a while, Amazon did pretty well, and a few other companies that sell online goods have reported some profit there. And as a result, our shopping habits have changed permanently. We receive way more packages than we ever have before. They're way more important packages than we've ever received before. And as a result, folks are actually willing to move. I've encountered it recently speaking with a multifamily investor who is putting in almost $200,000 in a package delivery area, including security, doors, for a multifamily property. And that's how important it is. In his other markets, he lost renters, experienced vacancy. took some big losses as a result of not securing its package delivery area. And so it's a priority. And I think it's a priority wherever we look and whatever kind of unit you're looking at. Now, I want to touch on two more things before I completely hand it over to Tegan. Vacancy rates and local rental rates are not only variable, they change within their micro markets annually, sometimes within a couple months. And as a result, I did not print slides out to show you every single neighborhood's vacancy rate. But you need to call someone, you need to talk to a property manager like myself, if you want to get a better understanding of where popular areas are to live, what kind of rent return can you get on those areas? Because sometimes those two items don't necessarily overlap. You know, Hillsborough is continuing to be a very popular market for folks to move to, but the rental market has seen some stagnation as just an anecdotal example. We don't necessarily know what the future holds, but with so much variation in our local and macro market, it's important to have a team. I can't say it enough. Talk to Tegan, talk to Natalie if you're considering taking a loan out and purchasing an investment property. My final words, there's a big difference between rental property investment in the city of Portland and the rest of the state. The city of Portland has very specific rules around depreciation, tenant landlord and relocation law, and the relationship there. I encourage you to talk to a property manager before investing in the city of Portland. There are great returns available in our city. Our city still ranks as one of the least expensive on the West Coast. I think there's a lot of growth, but with that growth, there is risk. And with a lot of legislation, there's additional risk to you as a landlord. So make sure you talk to an expert. And that's what I brought today.
Thank you so much, Hyle and Natalie. Thank you for all that information. It was super helpful. I feel like even though we talk about this all the time, I still learn new things every time we do one of these. So thank you for sharing your expertise. If anybody that's on has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. We'll give you just a few minutes to do so. We are right at about an hour, which was our goal time. So we did it. Yay, team. We rocked that. And if you have any questions that you think of later, we'd be happy to do a one-on-one consultation with you. If you want to send us an email, if you want to send us a text, likely if you've gotten like an invite to this or you're watching it later, it means you know one of us and how to reach us. Please just reach out, and we would love to get you any additional information that you need. Trying to see if we had any questions come in. I am not seeing anything, just some thank yous and all of that. So with
Thank you,
that,
Ignatius.
yes. So with that, I will I think I need to have Hyle switch me back to host, and then I will reclaim host. There we go. Perfect. And then yes. All right. I just got to figure out how to stop the recording.